Welcome to the last video in Phase 2 of the TimCo Retail Manager series. In this video, we're going to recap what we covered in Phase 2, and we're going to close out some outstanding bug reports, but we're also going to discuss what's upcoming in Phase 3 of a TimCo Retail Manager. We're not ending here. This is just the end of a phase. We've done Phase 1 already. That ended in 2019 near the end of the year, and then in 2020, we have now done Phase 2, and we're wrapping that up. And then in 2021, we'll continue on Phase 3. Now, soon after I release this video, I'm also going to be offering Phase 2 on sale at IamTimCory.com. We're going to discuss what that means and what the differences are between the paid version and the free version. Now, today we're going to modify some source code. So if you're a Patreon member at the $5 per month level or higher, head over to get the source code for today's video. All right, so let's talk about what's going on here. First of all, I just mentioned that Patreon members at the $5 per month level or higher get the source code every time we do new source code. And so what that means is you sponsor me on Patreon. This is just kind of my way of giving back a little bit. I'll post the source code with today's video. So you can go to Patreon, see the post, and download the video source code. So what I do is I do that all the time, but I don't necessarily guarantee back posts. So at some point, back posts go away, and so you can't really get all the source code for every video. Once you kind of have to get it within a certain time frame, otherwise it goes away. Now, that's not always convenient. Now, the source code is current for today's video, so you can, get up to speed as of today. But maybe you want to go back and watch a previous video and get that source code. It's not necessarily on Patreon. If it is there, it's just a little bit more inconvenient to find it. So what I've done is I've also created, after every phase, I create a course on IamTimCory.com. And it's just the video content from YouTube, same content. But then every video has the source code attached to it from that video. And it's a course. So let's look at one real quick. Look at Phase 1. This is Phase 1 here. And this is what you're going to see if you purchase the course. Notice it's grouped by section, and you can start each lesson. It will track where you're at, your progress. At the end of it, you get a certificate of completion once you've completed all the lessons. And then you go into a lesson. You'll first of all be able to get the source code. There it is right there at the top. And you'll also be able to watch the video, and you'll be able to download the video as well if you want to have offline viewing. Now, if you're an All Access Pass member, you don't get the download option, but you should probably know that. That's the one thing that All Access Pass doesn't give you, is the ability to download all the videos. Now, if you have a question about All Access Pass, you say, Tim, I've never heard of that. That is something I offer, but it's not currently open for enrollment. It opens about 6 times a year. If you're watching this video soon after release, then the next time is probably around the first of the year of 2021. That'll open maybe the end of December, early January, sometime in there will open. It's not a set schedule, and it's only open for about a week. Make sure you get on the mailing list, and you'll be alerted the next time it's open. If you enroll for that, then you have access to all my courses for one set fee. So this is what a course looks like. It's going to give you all this content. You can download it. It's just basically convenience for one thing. You have all the content. It's ad-free. It's not on YouTube, so there's no YouTube ads. It tracks your progress. You have the downloads associated with every video. You get a certificate of completion at the end, and it's yours for lifetime access. Unless, of course, you're getting the All Access Pass, then you're paying a rental fee. One you pay per month. But let's just say you purchase the whole thing. You get lifetime access to it. So that's what we did in Phase 1, where you can still watch the videos on YouTube. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you want this added convenience, there is the option to purchase this course on my site. Well, we're going to do the same thing with Phase 2 very, very shortly. So this week, I'll send an email out to the mailing list, and I'll say Phase 2 is now available, and this is something else I do. If you're on the mailing list, you're going to get $25 off. That's a limited time thing, but you'll get the course for $50 instead of the normal retail $75. Now, how do I come about with that price point? What I do is I look at how many weeks there are in the course roughly, and then I look at how much you would have paid on Patreon had you paid the $5 per month over that time period. And I say it's about $60. So if you didn't pay upfront with Patreon, then it's going to cost you a little bit more than if you now. But because you're on the mailing list, you get that for $50, which would be a little bit cheaper. But if you're a Patreon member, don't worry, I've got you covered. Because you've been paying month after month, and maybe even just 1 month, but you've been paying. So what I'm going to do is I'll send out a coupon code that is good for $50 off. So it'll be $25 for the course. Now, just so you know, if you're in a country that charges VAT, then your price will be a little bit different. That's because the VAT is added on top of these prices I'm mentioning. So $25 plus VAT, $50 plus VAT. So if you're a Patreon member, go to Patreon and get the coupon code. I will link it there. Hopefully by the time this video goes up, I will probably also put the link and put the course for sale right away. In fact, you know what? Check the description down below. There's probably a link already there. I'll put it there as soon as it's ready, but check the description down below. There's probably a link for buying the course. I may put that up even before the course is finished processing. So you may be buying a kind of an empty shell, but don't worry, it's coming. It will be there within the week. So just note that's probably there down in the description. I'll put it there once we're ready, but use those coupon codes to get it for a cheaper price. Now, if you're watching this video in the future, so this right now is December of 2020. If you're watching this probably in January of 2021 or beyond, that coupon code probably won't work. So you're gonna get the full price if you want phase 2. So just note that. Also, make sure you're on the mailing list because mailing lists will also get a discount for phase 1, as will Patreon members. So you have a discount for phase 1 and for phase 2. Not the exact same discount, but you'll get a discount if you want to catch up. So that's the difference between the paid course and the free course and what those all are. Don't worry, we are getting the code today. It's a little bit longer intro, but I want to make sure I cover that. And the third question I get, so the first question was Patreon members getting the all access to all the previous source code. Not really. But question number 2 is the difference between the paid and the free course. Then question number 3 is, do I have to start at phase 1? So today we're going to talk about the end of phase 2. And you may wonder, well, do I need to start at phase 1 or can I kind of jump in the middle somewhere? And the answer is yes, you can jump in anytime you want. Now, in phase 1, we started with a blank canvas and started building an application. But the TimCo Retail Manager series is all about pretending we're working in a real work environment. Unless you're one of the fortunate few who starts at a business in the beginning or starts when they're rebuilding their entire software catalog, then you're probably going to walk into a company where they already have software in place. And you have to learn that software and continue forward as a functioning member of the team. Well, you can do the same exact thing with the TimCo Retail Manager series. It may seem overwhelming or intimidating, but this is practice for the real world. And that's exactly what I designed it to do, to give you that practice of walking into a job in the middle of an application and going, okay, I can pick up and keep going from here. That skill, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you will be going to a place of employment and doing this for real. So you don't have to start in phase 1. If you want to get the background and get kind of up to speed that way, it's fine. Start in phase 1 and work your way through phase 2 as well. But you can start with just phase 2. Or if you really want to, you can wait and start in phase 3. It's okay. Now, if you don't start at the very beginning of phase 1, then you're going to walk into pre-built code. and we're not going to readdress and re-explain all the pre-built code. So just note that's the difference. If you're hoping to come in having a good understanding of what's going on in all the code, then you have to start at phase 1. All right, that's enough about that. Let's get to the code. We're actually going to start in our Azure DevOps. So this is the big focus for this year. So in phase 2, the real big focus was on DevOps and taking our product, which was an API, essentially an API and a WPF project, taking these projects and putting them into a continuous integration system, a continuous deployment system, putting them under source control, moving our source control from GitHub to Azure DevOps, creating our boards for tracking issues and bugs, and then getting into Azure, getting the deployments working, and making sure we had a development test environment. And we did all of that. So we have our boards here, which we're going to come back to today because there's a few things on here that I want to get addressed. But then we have our repository with all of our code, as well as all of our check-ins, all our commits, so we can see what we've done over the year. And then in our pipelines, we have our continuous integration build, and we have our continuous deployment build. That's coming up, it's a little slow. There's our development deployment. We can make a copy of that and create other environments if we wanted to. Now, with all of that, we have also our Azure portal, which has our API deployed. It has our authentication database, and it has our data database, as well as our Azure storage account that holds the produced single file executable for us. So that was a lot of work that we did on the processes around the code as much as it was the code. And in fact, we probably did more work on process than we did on code itself. Sometimes it felt like we were making minor tweaks to the code and doing more major tweaks to Azure DevOps, which is, it happens. That's what you do when you're putting this into an automated system. The nice thing is now that we have it automated, if we decide that we want to create a copy of this environment and call it staging and another one call it production, really it's a matter of making copies of all these things and then making a copy of our deployment. That's really all it's going to take in order to get those new environments up. A little bit of tweaks here and there for things like passwords and locations, some connection strings, but besides that, it's really just copy and paste now for other environments. And we may explore that next year in phase 3, but I think we're going to focus more on code in phase 3. I want to get into the website of things a lot more. Now that we have our API up and running, we're going to improve and grow that API, and then we will look at something like a Blazor WebAssembly for a progressive web app, and maybe even phasing out our WPF application. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That's coming up soon. But let's go back and look at these boards here, because we've got some work items on here and some of these have already been completed. For example, move the database to Azure SQL. Yeah, that's done. Those two are there. So we just didn't come in here and mark that off as complete. So we can change that from to do to done and save that. And go back to our work items. This one, deploy desktop app to Azure Blob Storage. We did that as well. So we can come in here and change this from to do to done. It's always nicer to be able to complete things. We have not yet done auto logout. That'd be a nice thing to add. This bug, which is rename or change the internal folder of the API, if we open that up, we'll see that the internal folder now holds items that are not internal. Consider renaming it. Makes sense. So let's go over to our code and look at the API. And in the library for the API, we have this internal folder, which has data access. Inside there, we have our iSQL data access and our SQL data access. but it's marked internal in the name, but yet it's public. And we did that because we put this into dependency injection. So with that, we need to rethink this folder structure. In fact, I think we can just bump this up by drag and dropping. Say okay. And that solves the folder itself. We can delete the folders. But it doesn't solve the issue of the namespace, because the namespace is now incorrect. If we quick actions refactoring, right click on it, we can rename the namespace to the correct namespace. And if we do that, then go to SQL Data Access and do the same thing, quick actions refactoring, change the namespace. Notice we've got some green or red check marks now. If you look here on inventory data, on product data, sales data, and user data, those all have green or red check marks now because they've changed. Let's also look at startup. That's also changed. If we look at what has changed, let's right click and say Git, compare with unmodified. And notice here it says using trmdatamanager.library.internal.dataaccess. That was in the original, and this is the new version, does not have that. And the reason why, and that's the only change, I think, because we got rid of that namespace. And so we had to change this file to reflect that. Well, because I did the rename using the quick actions refactoring by right clicking and saying quick actions refactoring when I was on the namespace, because we used that, it went through and found all the places where those changes need to happen, and it made them. So now we can still do a build solution, and it will still build just fine, and you won't get any errors. Let's just verify that's true. 5 succeeded, 0 failed. So even though we made those changes, that was all we needed to do. Now, we can go in. Let's see if we still have, they've changed Team Explorer, but work items, it says, hey, use the new hub. Let's not. Let's go over to, well, it made some changes here. Let's go home and let's go to get changes. There we go. There's our get changes. And we'll commit this. And so whereas this is all new with Visual Studio, you can revert back. They've made a little bit of a hash of this. Oops. I'm not thrilled with all the changes they made here, but if you poke around a bit, you can find stuff. So what's happened here is these are all the changes that we've made. There's nothing stashed. A stash is just what it sounds like. A stash is a place that you take changes and put them off to the side for later, and you don't commit them. But here, these are all the changes we've made. Notice there's 2 files with lines through them. That means deleted. And in fact, it's got a D next to that. That is just a D. It's not like we're missing or cut off values there. That stands for delete. So we deleted those 2 files. You might say, well, no, Tim, we didn't delete those files. Actually, we did, because in Git's mind, we created new files up here. See the A for add? We created new files in the data access directory that just happened to correspond to the deleted files in the internal data access folder. So just note that's how Git processes things. And then, of course, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 modifications in these folders or files plus 1 up here. We're going to commit all of this. We're going to say move data access out of internal. Removed the internal folder and moved the files into the regular data access location. Sounds good. And that's our commit. And I don't see right here, I'm going to just commit. Normally, we used to have a place in here to add our work items. I don't see that in this new one. I haven't played around fully enough to find all those things. So we're going to leave it as this. We'll go ahead and mark it manually. It's not going to associate the build automatically. We'll have to do that manually, but that's not the end of the world. So we hit commit, and then what we'll do is we can click on this 1 outgoing, 0 incoming, and we can see, okay, here's all the builds, and here's what's outgoing, and so on. And then we can, there is these 3 buttons here, fetch, pull, and push. I like to fetch first, make sure there's nothing there that is going to surprise me. There's not. Now I can hit push. And it's going to push this latest change up. And now our branch is in line with master on the server. That, in turn, is going to kick off an automated build. All right? So now with this, I believe you can come in here and link. Nope, that's not it. Let's go to details. Let's go to development add link. And we can look at the branch. And we're linking this bug on the branch, master branch. We actually want to go to a commit. So let's go to a commit. And let's look at the commit IDs. And this one right here, we can select that and hit, goodness. Let's hit back on that. Let's try this again. I usually go through and do it in Visual Studio, but we can still do it like commit, find the commit ID, and we can hit OK. There's a commit ID. We hit OK, and now that has associated this bug fix with that commit. Now, when that commit goes through the process of building, deploying, we'll have this information associated with that commit. All right, we can change this as well to done. Normally, you'd wait to say done until you're sure, like so, until you put it in production. Yes, it's working, but in our case, we know it's going to work, right? Never goes wrong. Let's just hope it does. The other things in here, web-based inventory control system, that's coming in phase 3. Suggestion, auto, logout, we're not going to do that yet. Bug, tokens are not working in Swagger. And update the startup documentation. These are things we're going to probably address in phase 3. So let's talk about phase 3 and where we're at. Because phase 3 is going to be a lot more focused on the administrative side of things. So first of all, we have that inventory management system that we talked about, the idea that we can add inventory to our system. Right now, the inventory is kind of pretend in that there's no way to bring new inventory in. And so therefore, we decided not to actually take inventory out when you make a purchase because it just makes it harder for us to test things out. So we're going to wire that up to be really how it works so that when you make a sale, it takes things out of the inventory and you have to buy new inventory in order to have something on the shelf to sell. So that requires an administrative portal, which means security and permissions around that. So we'll set that up and we'll probably use Blazor WebAssembly for maybe part of it. I'm not sure if we'll do Blazor WebAssembly for the administrative side or just the replacement for the WPF system or kind of a next gen version of the WPF system. So WPF will probably kind of phase out as a legacy type application, and we'll go with a progressive web application for our next user interface. We can still have the old one while we're working on the new one. This is what businesses do quite frequently. So we'll probably look at that. That way we can have cross-platform use of our application, not just on Windows. And yet we're not waiting for .NET 6 and MAUI, which isn't going to come out until the end of the year anyway. And this is something that businesses often deal with, is the concept of, we'd like to have this feature, but it's not out yet, so we can't. So what do we do in the meantime? Do we put ourselves in a holding pattern, waiting for the next great thing, or do we get to work today? And the answer is almost always get to work today, because the business has to make money. It can't wait until the situation is right, until the right stuff comes out, because inevitably you'll be waiting forever. And at that point, you're bankrupt. So we'll probably address the next gen user interface as a progressive web application. That'll be kind of fun. We can put it on all different devices. We can install it offline. We can work around with doing some offline stuff and caching and all the rest, and still have authentication. And then we're also going to look at that administrative side as well. And maybe we'll do a different UI for that. I'm not positive, because it would be kind of cool to have a different system for that, just for the experience of adding a different system. But at the same time, code reuse and knowledge reuse is really nice. And so maybe we just do Blazor WebAssembly. We'll see. So that's kind of the stuff I'm thinking about for phase 3. Phase 3 is not going to start until January of 2021. That's when we'll kick that off. And so if you have some ideas about what you'd like to see in phase 3, let me know. I don't think that Xamarin will be in phase 3. That keeps coming up as a question. I don't think we're there yet. I'm not sure I want to go there before .NET 6. So I think we'll stay away from Xamarin, but we will probably implement at least some form of microservice in phase 3. So we can talk about that. Remember that microservices don't have to be the entire application. That's not how microservices are best used. Instead, it might be for pieces. And so we'll see if maybe we can implement something like that and look at like Azure Functions or services that you can run on your own computer or something to that effect to really elevate this application. So bring your ideas, bring your thoughts, post them down in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are on phase 3, as well as what you think we're still missing from phase 2, or that we need to, any bug fixes that you think need to be addressed. So with that, I think we're gonna wrap up phase 2. That was, it was a fun year. It was quite the year, between all the stuff's going on, in the real world, and then also in TimCo Retail Manager. The TimCo Retail Manager will continue for a while. I don't anticipate being done even after phase 3, because this really is a work in progress project. It's practice for the real world. And so just like in the real world, we're going to address things like legacy code and how to deal with that. The idea that we probably can't upgrade our WPF application to .NET 5 or .NET 6 because of that Caliburn micro. What do we do there? Do we rebuild it, or do we just say, we're going to bring stuff over into the new progressive web application system? This is what companies deal with all the time. Even YouTube, their back-end interface, they have an old user interface and they have a new user interface. And they've been trying to switch off of the old user interface for a couple of years. And I believe it's still hanging around a little bit because they haven't brought all those features over into the new system yet. And that's what we're going to kind of wrestle with as we build our application. Do we, what if we don't have all the features? How does that work? Are we leaving some people behind if they don't have the full version versus the progressive web application version? So we'll wrestle that kind of stuff as we go. So I really think this is a great testing bed and a great way to practice what you're going to do in the real world. All right, so with that, phase 2 is wrapped up. Don't forget, check the description down below to see if that link has popped in there yet for purchasing the course. I'll give you a discount as well. Even though you're not necessarily on the mailing list, I'll give you that mailing list discount. But if you are on the mailing list, you'll get an email with a discount on phase 2 as well as phase 1. And then if you're a Patreon member, don't use the mailing list email. Go right to Patreon, because Patreon members get the best discount on this course because of the fact they've already been paying that $5 per month. And yes, that will be for people who've paid at the $5 per month level or higher to get that discount. And it's, it's 67% off. So definitely check that out and get it while it lasts. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this series. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. I can't wait for phase 3. I hope the same is true for you. Let me know down in the description if you have any thoughts. All right. As always, I am Tim Corey.